Okay, so I work for a studio. We make video games. So the studio is called Synergy 88. And previous to that, I came from another studio. And both studios do work on what we call triple. So these are the console games. So we generally work for um, PlayStation or Xbox in my case. So this is probably the highest end of digital arts because it's triple A gaming. And obviously along the way, we've also made a lot of mobile games, a few PC games here and there. And so I've been doing that for roughly 15 years. And just like many people who are of my age bracket, many of us actually did not have the educational background for this industry. The video game industry in the Philippines started technically according to our history in 2001, but still at this point in time, I feel that it's still nascent. We still have a long way to go. We may be loud and proud of what we do, but our numbers are not there yet. The numbers that we need to really make a big dent in the AAA industry is not there yet. But it's coming along. It's coming along. Now, I wear another hat, and that's probably how you find me. That's how you found me. So I was president of the Game Developers Association for 11 years. And then after a very, very violent revolution, they kicked me out and made me chairman. Maybe because of my age, I don't know. So I'm now chairman of the Game Developers Association Philippines. And with that honor and duty, it makes me part of the board membership of IBPAP. Now in the Philippines, outsourcing, especially in general traditional businesses, the call centers. I mean, this employ almost 1.5 million people. And IBPAP is the organization that fosters it and cares for this association. And we work closely, with our government, no matter how sucky that is. So, over the years, we've gone through many administrations. We've worked with educational systems as well. We produce studies. We produce roadmaps, and so so in the Philippines, if there's anything IT related, it usually falls under the umbrella of IDPAP because of who they are and how it came to be and how big and formidable the membership is. So that's one thing you should understand in the Philippines, especially if you talk to people like me who are the veterans, the oldies in the industry, because that's how we differ. That's how we are connected. That's how we know you. That's how we know the British Council or any other government agency or non-government agency. It's usually to that end. We always try to connect it on a bigger effort, to produce more jobs, better quality jobs. We talk about upskilling. Because you have to understand in IDPAP, there's not just the call centers, although they are the largest employers, but we also have health information services. We also have the software developers. We have the animation industry. Then you have the game developers. So we put color into the offerings of the Philippines whenever we offer our services to other parts of the world. We know that it's a very good employment vehicle. We are still a developing country, and obviously, every dollar that we earn is a multiplier in our localities. So that's why we do this. It's not that we've given up on local business, but we know that there's just better business out there for us. And we have proven over a decades that the creative output of the Filipinos, especially from where I've been, is we are at par with most people, actually anybody. I prove it. I'm in AAA, and I work with Filipinos, and given the chance, given that opportunity to take tests, to prove ourselves, interview us, and try to work with us. You will find a, a different kind of flavor. You know, we, you know, definitely, since we're talking to the British Council, you're from the West. And yeah, I'm sure you've heard that we do speak English, but it's more than that. You know, we come from a culture that is very Western facing. You know, when Trump became president, we cried. Um, when Boris screwed up, we laughed. So you know, this is what we look like. This is what we look at on an everyday basis. So imagine on a creative project, creative. There should be a lot of humor when we're trying to create a project, you know, something with art. And usually that humor that we carry, um, it I guess it eases, you know, it eases the trust building between client and vendor. And you need that. You need to learn how to trust your vendor in order to give them, you know, longer projects or to trust them in bigger projects. Obviously, in my experience, when most foreign clients meet a Philippine team, they'll only start with very, very small tasks. You know, they're always careful. Why? Why? You know, we've proven over decades we are far with the best. You know, I have the I'm proud to be one of the people that the Philippines that have been championing this side of the digital creative industry, and I'm not going to stop. You know, I'm not going to stop. Uh, Again, part of my work in as head of the association is, you know, we've done many shows abroad, wherein, you know, when times were good, when times were good, the government would subsidize some of the shows we pick out. You know, we go to the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. There was a great show in Canada called the External Development Conference, which we were stars of the show at that time. You know, in 2016, 2015, 2016. We've been to Germany. I've been to Finland. I've been to many other places in the world, waving that flag. You know, and just telling everyone. And when I go there, I don't talk about synergy. I just talk about Philippines. You know, so that brand would stick in their heads. So that's pretty much what I do. It's not making me any richer, but we do have to build an industry here. And any bright ideas that have been tested in other places in the world, you know, I'm open to learning more about them. Obviously, I'm sure that we haven't thought of everything yet. And I hope to get into great discussions on the many possibilities we can have while sitting at that round table. So that's me. I'm Alvin Juban, Studio Director of Synergy 88 and Chairman of the Game Developers Association of Philippines. I go to that big conversation. Everybody needs infrastructure. Whether you're in the call center industry or we're all gonna say we need better infrastructure, better internet, la 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 la. We've been saying that for a long, long time. It's catching up, you know. It's catching up. It's catching up. The infrastructure is catching up. That's all I can say. I mean, I just wish it was better. Prices have gone down, especially with internet bandwidth, and it is getting better. This period of the pandemic lockdown, you know, it really pushed everyone, even the telcos, to really provide better services. And it's not easy for them. Now, again, being on the IBPAC board, I sit with the telcos, and you really have to listen to their plight. We Filipinos were fans of just bitching at everyone, you know? But sometimes you really have to understand. Um, Before the pandemic, the telcos' main clients or the best paying clients are the BPOs. So obviously, all the cabling and the wiring and all the networks would be focusing on the big buildings, you know, where they have their offices. But when the pandemic came, oh my God, they had to switch it out and start pointing at the villages. No, so that's not easy. You have to understand, it's not just you're on a big board and just pulling plugs and reconfiguring that. It's not that easy. Um, and I think it has worked out. And honestly, a lot of studios, video game studios, particularly, I think most creative studios um, gained a lot of traction during this time. Um, and in fact, I know, in fact, in my membership, some some studios grew by 30%, 40%. One even grew by 100%. Because now work from home was accepted not only by the local companies but by the clients. That's very very important. Just because we're creative, just because we make games, or just because we do digital art, the security factor in our jobs is not less than what the other guys do in the normal industry. All right, and so we learn how to trust each other. Even in my business, AAA, where security is the most anal thing that that you have to prove, to be a AAA service provider. We really had to talk with our clients and say that because again, what we do, our official machines that we use for business are bound to a specific location in a certain room. The IP is registered to the plug, and you can never move that machine out. But then the pandemic, we have no choice. So they introduced other safety measures, which allowed our people to work from home by, but of course we had to buy our people new machines so that they could do some work at home and then connect to their official computers at the studio. So we had to, and then right now that's still holding on. We are not being forced to go back to work at the studio because a lot of silly people like you, the French, the English, they're not trying to work as if everything was normal. It's not normal. People are still getting sick, and unfortunately for us, we cannot risk going full on face-to-face working because we don't have the healthcare. So we will be keeping this work from home or hybrid arrangement for as long as we can. So that's our current situation. When asked how big our footprint is in the video game industry, so notably, you just Google about video games, and it's going to say that the global video game industry is roughly 180 to 200 billion dollars globally, and sadly, we get less than 1% of that in the Philippines. Less than 1%. In fact, okay, in my point of view, we're barely 3,000 people. We're barely 3,000 people in the formal registered video game industry. I cannot count on the freelancers. I cannot count them. I know they're there, but most of the really important jobs have to be trusted to registered studios, and that's how you build the industry. And most of that 3,000 or 4,000 is actually not really making games like what I do. A big population of that is into game support or game management. So again, it makes use of our English skills and our broad understanding on how games are played, because we are very, very familiar with playing video games. As long as it's playing, we know that. So even in our membership, it's 700, 900, 1,000 man count are those companies. With the creative ones, with the fully creative ones who do 3D art, 2D art, usually you have 30, 50, lucky if you have 100 of people for doing actual 2D or 3D art. And predominantly, definitely, most of the work in terms of numbers is still on the 2D space. These are mainly for mobile games, PC games, That's in terms of numbers. The smaller numbers, but that drive the higher value is like what we do, 3D, the 3D art, and we're predominantly making assets. We're not even animating them yet. We're not even animating them yet. Yeah, we're just making the assets for the game. 3D animation, yeah, we know about it. You know, there are some people who do it here. Very, very few. You know, but we are most of my competitors here are doing that because in a video game, you know, 90% of the stuff is actually environments, weapons, costumes, vehicles, and that's the main thing available here in the Philippines. And we have that history of doing that. So we have, you know, it's still a small footprint, and you know, compared to our, you know, to China or India, they have the really big studios over there. But hey, this small footprint that we have, we made this. I'm part of it. I'm very, very proud of that footprint. So you can't just shut it aside. And it's growing over time. I think we have gained traction. Yeah, as I told you, Michelle, I've been doing this for quite a while. You know, going around the world telling people that, you know, we're good. The Philippines, you know, we can do high-end art, video games, and they actually believe me. So now it's become very, very competitive here. The studios that have set up, oh boy, it's not been easy for me since I belong to a local studio. You have some big guns that have come in with dollars, with watches. Um, for example, Ubisoft, which is a huge French company, they've been here since 2016. Uh, and they're now part of a school system, which is De La Salle University, which has a campus off Manila in Laguna. So they're part of that. And then there are other studios which I will not mention since we're competitors who are here, who have grown to 100, you know, in 2 years' time. There are even a big Chinese studio here who doesn't outsource. They actually own their game. So obviously their watch is even deeper. It's even deeper. And, you know, a lot. We get, you know, me and my friends, we get inquiries about how to set up a new studio in the Philippines quite regularly. So our current challenge is really producing more of these talented individuals. And our current problem is, well, one, the pandemic. So it's a boon and a bane. Obviously, people went online, students went online, but actually, you know, life was hard. A lot of parents lost money. And in fact, a lot of students were told to get more practical courses. A lot of parents in the Philippines did not realize that doing digital art would actually boom during this pandemic lockdown. It's too late. So we lost a lot of the students. And then there was also the fact that our former president um, gave away scholarships to state universities, a lot of scholarships. So obviously, as parents, you know, you're losing money, pandemic. Yeah, so they transferred their students, their children to the state universities in the provinces because everybody was going online. It seems it didn't matter, you know, as long as you just get education. And then a couple of years before the pandemic, we were going on a K-12 transition. So again, there was a 2-year gap where we didn't have students. So that's where we are. You know, even now, you know, we prepared our studios to take in interns, and we find it very, very important. And some parts of this I will share the roundtable. We don't have much selection. Very, very few interns now, because again, not many enrolled. So I don't know. I really don't know how many more years it would take for this to catch up. You know, to have more students who, let's face it, when you're doing what we do, you need to have some funding. You need to have a machine at home. I can't give that to you. You have to be able to find your own software. And, you know, those are the The difficulties, it's still a developing country. Still a developing countries. A lot of our ideas, I guess, in the roundtable will try to circumvent that infrastructure, machinery, access to software, even before talking about expertise, teaching expertise. These are the realities of the Philippines. Obviously, as one of the veteran flag bearers, I will always tell you that there is obviously potential. It's obviously potential.
And just location wise, so you were saying that people can take their machines home right now, even with the security issues.
Yeah,
But is it Manila centric? Is it Cebu
it
centric?
is.
Where most
It,
of
it
the
is. It still is. Like I have a friend, a young friend who was based in Davao, and so it's like for the more high end applications, you really still needed a studio because you have to have a server. You still need a home base. You just have to shrink it, just shrink the footprint. So he was from Davao. They were doing okay, but he realized to actually expand, to even convince people to work with him, he couldn't stay in Davao. Everybody would rather be in Manila, even though they were working from home. Case in point, when that Cebu that storm hit, Cebu was devastated, and that was Cebu, our second best city. I had an artist there. I lost it for 2 months. So still, no matter what you say, Manila still has better infrastructure. And true enough, when he transferred to Manila, people joined him. Even though there's still, some are still in the provinces, a lot of them prefer to, get a condo nearby and, have that chance to visit the studio, meet up face to face every now and then. So it's definitely, it's 99% very, very Manila central. We are trying to build a better industry, a bigger industry in other parts of the, obviously Cebu, we have to look at Cebu. We're also looking at Visayas, Iloilo, Naga, definitely. And our current president in GDAP has been traveling on his own time, his own pocket. He's been traveling and meeting the same people I've met over the last decade. And he's really trying to push a lot of these activities, talking about possible funding, new businesses, small businesses. Doesn't necessarily have to be in gaming. It doesn't have to be. We're not going to push it to make games, but we're going to tell you that digital art, being digitally creative, can be a good option for you. So that's our case.
does it include Roblox, AR, Facebook augmented reality? Is that part of your
Yeah,
how
part of our
involved are
realm.
you in that? Yeah.
I used to do a project like that, and there's quite a few of us who are dipping into that AR, VR, MR. Roblox is just another game. Um, so it's not really on that same level of the conversation. But yeah, AR, VR, definitely. We have more than a few guys who are capable. And I've actually lost people. I've lost staff to startup companies who are doing that here. One thing that is very, very important for games when you build a game, which we try to make it look realistic. And when you do that, the files become so heavy. So a lot of the time, if it takes 10 days to build an asset properly and to be part of a game, you probably build it for 2 days, and then for the next 8 days you optimize it. So you try to keep it beautiful, but make sure that it weighs much less. This same thing that you need in AR or VR. And so we were born to understand it. So my people have been pirated left and right because my guys get it. Same technology, pretty much same technology. We just make things look pretty in video games. So the Philippine gaming industry. I, I want a bigger footprint in the AAA industry because when you can when you can have that footprint in the AAA industry, which is the highest, most expensive, most difficult, that means you have acquired a pool of very attractive skills. And then obviously you can expect that you can find other people who can do the lower things. You get it? We show you the biggest carrot, which is AAA. You know, I'll brag about the titles I've worked with, but that should give our foreign friends who want to help us to understand we can do other stuff as well, because we understand the highest and most difficult. Then we can do other stuff. We can do more concept art. We can do more digital posters quickly and efficiently. So I wish for a bigger footprint. Sadly, I'm wishing for more competitors. It kills me. I'm going to get fired. But that's how industries are growing. I hope I survive it. But that's how industries are growing.
Any recommendations?
Invest in me. That's definitely the recommendation is what we're going to try to talk about in the roundtable. And it's going to be driven by education. How to educate in this environment. It's peak. It's challenging. Again, it's a new administration. Things are still in a flux. So besides, there are many factors that have to be considered when coming up with some genius solution during the roundtable. And one of them is whatever solution we have has a lifespan of 6 years. You know what I mean? So don't think that's going to change. We can only plan for 6 years. At this point, we can only plan for 5 years before anything gets locked down. So that's a hindrance, because I've done this so many times. I've built courses, and it's frustrating. It's really frustrating when you can't implement it over a long period of time. I fear that during that roundtable, all we will be able to come up with are band-aid solutions, because maybe that's the only thing that will be allowed.